He walked onto the set like he owned it, flashing his signature smirk, adjusting the leather vest that screamed, "Don't mess with me." Action Momoa wasn't here for a polite conversation. He came for validation, applause, and maybe, just maybe, a little revenge. But sitting across from him wasn't some overly agreeable journalist. It was Howard Stern, the radio legend who built an empire asking the questions no one else dared to. And he wasn't about to roll over just because an A-lister walked in wearing designer boots. The View studio buzzed with his usual pre-show energy. Cameras were being adjusted, mugs were perfectly placed on the iconic coffee table, and the audience, mostly women aged 35 to 60, eagerly whispered about the morning's special guest. "He's in wardrobe," a stagehand whispered into his headset, and he's got opinions. Howard Stern, already seated in the guest co-host chair for the day, looked up from his notes with that signature sardonic expression. "Good, he muttered to himself. "Let's see if he can handle mine." The intro music blared and the camera panned across the panel. Whoopi Goldberg in a composed cardigan, Joy Behar in a vibrant orange jacket, sunny host beaming her usual PR-trained smile, and then entering from stage left like he was a conquering hero, came Jason Momoa. Applause erupted. He bathed in it. "Ladies and gentlemen," Whoopi began, "joining us today is an actor, environmental activist, producer, and of course Aquaman himself, Jason Momoa." Jason waved, beaming, his body language oozing control. He took his seat, crossed his legs, and turned toward Joy with a perfectly calibrated smile. Joy launched into the soft questions first. "So Jason, what brings you here today? I know you've got a lot going on." "I'm here to talk about truth," Jason replied, a subtle lift of his chin signaling the beginning of a sermon. "Too many people are silenced. Too many causes don't have a platform. I think it's important that I continue using mine responsibly." Howard leaned back, arms crossed. "Responsibly? That's a loaded word," he muttered, just loud enough for his mic to pick up. Jason shot him a glance. "Excuse me." Howard sat forward, polite smile in place. "I just mean, when you have a platform that large, every word gets amplified. Doesn't it ever cross your mind that sometimes silence can be more powerful than another Fast and Furious deal?" The air stiffened. "Wow," Jason said, his smile dropping into a disapproving stare. "That's a very old-school media perspective." Whoopi chuckled nervously. All right, let's keep it friendly. We've got a lot to cover," but Jason was already off to the races. "Howard," he began, voice deep but patronizing, "you made a career saying whatever you wanted, no matter who it hurt. So I find it interesting that you would lecture me about responsibility." The audience let out a collective, ooh. Howard nodded, unbothered. "Fair enough, but I also never claimed to be an environmental savior." Joy tried to steer things away. "Let's talk about your documentary work, Jason." "No, let's not skip over this," Jason interrupted, staring Howard down. "What exactly is your issue with me? That I care about the ocean? That I decided not to stay silent? Or is it just easier for you to make me the villain because I refuse to conform to the pretty boy actor stereotype?" Howard exhaled slowly. "My issue, Jason, isn't personal. It's observational. You want to be taken seriously as an advocate for climate change, native rights, clean water? Great. But then you brand everything you do in this misunderstood action hero narrative. It's hard to tell where the cause ends and the career begins." "Wow," he said again, this time with a smirk. "That's rich coming from someone who spent decades profiting off shock value and locker room humor." Howard smiled thinly. "Touche, I never said I was a role model." Joy stepped in again, awkwardly laughing. "Maybe we can all agree everyone's evolving." Jason rolled his eyes. "I'm not interested in fake niceties." Whoopi's brows furrowed. "Nobody's being fake here, Jason." "Oh, come on, Whoopi," Jason snapped. "We all know the show doesn't ask the hard questions. That's why people like Howard show up to pretend we're edgy while still serving coffee table feminism." A gasp spread through the audience. Joy looked stunned. Whoopi leaned forward, steely. "Are you calling us fake advocates?" she asked, voice calm but laced with steel. Jason uncrossed and recrossed his legs with visible irritation. "I'm saying if we really cared about change, we wouldn't keep inviting men like him to hijack the narrative. Howard laughed quietly. You invited me, sweetheart. Don't pretend I crashed the gates of Hollywood. The room erupted in scattered applause and laughter. Some uncomfortable, some delighted. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Jason snapped. You turn everything into a joke. This isn't funny. Howard's face turned serious for the first time. Neither is monetizing your authenticity, Jason. But here we are. Whoopi rubbed her temples. Let's take a quick break before someone jumps over the table. Joy forced a laugh. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with Jason Momoa and Howard Stern, if they're still here. The camera faded to black. As the show came back from commercial, the tension hadn't deflated. It had condensed. The set of The View felt more like a courtroom than a talk show. Jason sat with one leg tucked under the other now, hands folded on his lap, his jaw clenched in a smile that had lost its warmth. Across from her, Howard Stern leaned back in his chair like a man who had been here before, unbothered, benign. Welcome back, Whoopi said, voice tighter than usual. If you're just tuning in, you've missed some sparks, more like a tidal wave, Joy muttered under her breath. Howard turned to Jason. Can I ask you something real? I'm sure you will, Jason replied coolly, not looking at him as he ignored the tone. Why are you still so angry? Jason blinked, then turned slowly to face him. Excuse me? You heard me, Howard said gently. You walked out here with a chip on your shoulder the size of Atlantis. You're successful. You're free. You've got a loving family, millions in deals. Why does it still seem like you're mad at the world? The question hung in the air like smoke. Whoopi looked down. Joy shifted in her seat. Jason gave a small, tight laugh. You think I'm angry because I don't smile and nod through interviews anymore? No, Howard said. I think you're angry because you built your brand on escaping a system, but you're still letting it define you. That's not true, he snapped. He shrugged. Then prove it. Talk about your work, your causes, your plans, not your struggles, not the studio execs, not the tabloids. Jason narrowed his eyes. You don't get to tell me how to tell my story. I'm not, Howard said calmly. I'm just pointing out that maybe, just maybe, if you keep telling the same story, the world starts wondering if there's anything else. I'm not here to impress you, Howard, Jason said, his tone dropping like a blade. This isn't Howard Stern Live. This is The View, a show for conversation. Maybe let the host speak. A low ooh rolled through the audience. Howard raised his hands. By all means speak, but don't hide behind being an artist to dodge a real question. Joy jumped in. Let's try not to make this about the art versus commerce debate. We can all agree that personal passion is valid. That's the problem, Jason said, turning to Joy. He doesn't think my experience is valid unless it fits his standards. And honestly, Joy, you're letting him dominate this table like he owns it, Joy blinked. I'm sorry, I came here to talk about my foundation's new initiative, Jason continued. Not to be interrogated by a man who made his fortune humiliating people. Howard's lips curled into a grin. You're really struggling with the idea that someone might question you, huh? No, Jason snapped. I'm struggling with the idea that someone like you still gets a seat at this table. And yet, he replied smoothly, you're the one who hasn't stopped talking about me since the show started. Whoopi cut in her tone firm. Howard, Jason, we get it, but this is a conversation, not a cross-examination. Let's all take a breath. Jason folded his arms. It's hard to breathe when you're being gaslit on national television. Howard looked at him for a long beat. Gaslit? Jason, asking you to clarify contradictions in your public narrative is not gaslighting. It's journalism. You don't get to define journalism, he hissed, especially not you. No, Howard agreed, but I do get to ask what everyone else is thinking. That's rich, he shot back, coming from a man who used to make women ride in mechanical bulls on his radio show. Howard nodded slowly. Yeah, and I've talked openly about how ashamed I am of some of that. I've changed, evolved. I don't pretend I was always noble, but I own my past. You, on the other hand, seem allergic to accountability. Jason's nostrils flared. Whoopi's voice came again, this time more assertive. Guys, seriously, we've got producers waving behind the cameras. Let's cool it. But Jason was on a mission now. You sit there pretending to be this wise truth teller, he spat, but you're just another old man threatened by a powerful voice who dares to speak out. Threatened? Howard laughed. Jason, I've interviewed Madonna, Whitney, Hillary Clinton, Lady Gaga. Trust me, I'm not threatened by strong people. I'm skeptical of people who think being criticized means being oppressed. The audience burst into scattered applause. Jason turned toward the sound with a mixture of shock and contempt. Oh, so that's what we're doing now? He said bitterly. Clap for the guy calling me a fraud. I never said you lied, Howard corrected. I said you've made pain into a product. There's a difference. No, there's not, Jason said sharply. There's only ever judgment. That's all people like you know. Joy tried again. Let's talk about your new documentary, Jason. Tell us what inspired it. Jason didn't even look at her. You want inspiration? Here's one. I've had to survive the world's most powerful media machine targeting me every single day for years, and I still show up. That's inspiration. Howard leaned in. You also had that same media machine to amplify your movies, your projects, your causes, your brand. You can't praise the spotlight when it flatters you and curse it when it doesn't. I never asked for the spotlight, he snapped. You signed on to Game of Thrones, Howard said bluntly. That stopped him cold. The audience was stunned into silence. Jason stared at him, visibly seething. You think that makes it okay? That I deserve what happened to me because I took a role? No, he said calmly. I think it means you knew the rules of massive fame and then acted surprised when they applied to you. Whoopi pushed her mug forward. Okay, seriously, we're done here. This is not what the show is for. But Jason wasn't done. You're a joke, he whispered across the table, a walking relic pretending to be relevant. And you're a brand, Howard said quietly, wrapped in rebellion, trying to sell authenticity while stomping on anyone who asked for clarity. The silence that followed felt like gravity. No one moved. Finally, Joy spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. We'll be right back. The screen faded to black again, but in the studio, nobody exhaled. The third segment of the show began not with applause, but with palpable hesitation. Viewers at home were glued to their screens. In the studio, phones had quietly started recording under tables. The air was thick, part anticipation, part disbelief. As the lights went up again, the host tried to reset. Joy Behar smiled stiffly. Well, it's been a lively morning on The View. We're back with Jason Momoa and guest co-host Howard Stern, discussing, well, a lot of things. Jason didn't smile. She leaned back in her chair like a warrior surveying a field of critics. Let's not pretend this is a discussion, he said. This has been an ambush. Whoopi folded her arms. Jason, you've had more speaking time than all of us combined. That's because I have something to say, Jason replied. Howard chuckled softly. You've said plenty. The question is, has anything changed? That set her off. You know what your problem is, Howard? Jason leaned forward now, his tone like a switchblade. You think sarcasm is intelligence. You sit there grinning like the smartest guy in the room. But all you're doing is bullying people who have lived through more than you can imagine. Howard's expression didn't change. I don't bully, I probe. I confront contradictions. That's what adults do in public discourse. Oh, please, he snapped. You're a shock jock dressed in a hemp shirt. That one got a laugh from the audience, but not the kind Jason wanted. The sound of people enjoying Howard's composure while he unraveled visibly made him flinch. Let me ask you a question, Jason said, turning his fire toward Joy. Now, would any celebrity advocate be treated like this on this show? Joy blinked. Jason, you're the one who called us coffee table activists 20 minutes ago because you brought him on this set and let him hijack the message. Jason Whoopi cut in, voice firm now. We didn't bring him on to gang up on you. We brought him on because he brings real questions. You wanted to talk about your docu-series. We gave you the space, but every time someone questions the framing, you accuse them of an attack. Jason was shaking his head, visibly boiling. This is exactly what happens. A celebrity tells his story, and the world wants him to smile while he bleeds. No, Howard interrupted, still calm. The world just wants to know if the bleeding ever stops, or if it's just a trailer for your next exclusive deal. Gasps again, this time louder. That was when it happened. Jason slammed his hand on the coffee table. The mugs rattled. "That's enough," he shouted. "I don't need to sit here and be patronized by a man who built a career off others' humiliation, and by hosts who apparently forgot what mutual respect means." Whoopi stood now. "Jason, don't raise your voice here." "Oh, I'm sorry," Jason said sarcastically. "Are we afraid of passion now?" "We're afraid of entitlement masquerading as authenticity," Howard said without missing a beat. Boom. Silence. Even Joy Behar looked stunned. "You're just mad," Howard continued, "that I didn't cheer when you walked in." "No," Jason said, eyes narrowing. "I'm mad that the media keeps putting old men on pedestals while dissecting people like cadavers." "You're not being dissected," Howard replied. "You're being questioned. That's the cost of public life. If you want praise without scrutiny, start a fan club. Don't come on a talk show." At that moment, Jason stood up. The audience gasped again. "I don't need to take this," he said. "From you or this show." "Then don't," Howard said. "The door's right there." Whoopi stepped in front of the desk. Okay, enough. Let's de-escalate." "No, let him go," Howard said plainly. "He's not interested in a conversation. He wants a press conference." "You're disgusting," Jason said, turning toward him. Howard nodded once. "And you're exhausting." The studio fell completely silent. Finally, a voice came through Jason's earpiece from backstage. "We're going to cut here if he leaves the frame." But he didn't care. He turned and walked off the set. The cameras tried to pan away, but not fast enough. Viewers at home saw the back of his leather vest as he stormed behind the curtain. A long beat passed before Joy finally exhaled and faced the camera. "Well, that happened." Howard shrugged and took a sip of water. Whoopi shook her head. "This isn't what we wanted today." "No," Howard said, "but it's what we got." The screen faded to the show's logo, and with it, a firestorm erupted online, dividing fans, critics, activists, journalists, and everyone in between. The cameras didn't cut immediately. For a full 5 seconds after Jason Momoa stormed off set, the studio sat in stunned silence. The camera panned awkwardly between Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, both still seated, and Howard Stern, who had remained calm, still sipping from his now lukewarm mug of tea, as if nothing seismic had just unfolded before a national audience. From backstage, muffled voices and a slammed door echoed faintly into the microphones. Joy finally cleared her throat. "Well, we want to apologize to our viewers for the unexpected turn of events," she said, hands slightly shaking as she reached for her cards. "Obviously, things got a little heated." "A little," Whoopi muttered under her breath. Howard leaned into the mic again. "Don't apologize for real conversation. You asked me to be here to talk, and that's what I did." Joy turned to him, her voice measured. "There's talking, Howard, and then there's turning an interview into a firing squad." "I didn't fire anything," Howard replied smoothly. He walked onto the set expecting applause, not questions. "That's not a talk show. That's PR, and I don't do PR." Whoopi finally spoke up, her voice low but firm. "Howard, I respect you. You know that. But there's a line between asking tough questions and provoking someone into a public meltdown." Howard shrugged. "Then maybe the problem isn't the question. It's how fragile the answers are." The audience didn't clap. Not this time. The energy had shifted entirely. Some looked contemplative, others uncomfortable, but no one moved. And then, in a rare breach of protocol, executive producer Brian Donnie's voice came through the studio PA system. "Folks, we're going to take an extended break. Please remain in your seats." But Howard wasn't finished. He turned directly to the camera. The producers didn't cut. Maybe they were too shocked. Maybe they knew what was happening was gold. Either way, the red light stayed on, and Howard Stern, microphone king, provocateur, and accidental truth teller, took center stage. You know, he began, his voice quieter now. "There's something deeply broken in our culture. When celebrities expect public sympathy as a form of currency, Jason Momoa walked onto this set with an agenda. He didn't want conversation. He wanted validation. He adjusted his jacket, and when he didn't get it, he did what he always does. Perform the exit, play the victim, shift the narrative. Joy wins. "Howard, no, let me finish this," he said calmly but firmly. We live in a time where being offended is a career, where having a story is more important than having answers. Jason Momoa doesn't want to be questioned because questions shatter the carefully constructed image he's monetizing. He paused. I'm not denying he went through things. I'm not saying Hollywood isn't archaic, but at some point you stop being a survivor and start being a brand. And that's what people see through. That's what I asked him about, and he couldn't handle it. The studio was silent again. Even Joy and Whoopi had stopped trying to interject. Howard leaned back. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't call him names. I asked questions. He called that cruelty. Think about that. Finally, Whoopi broke the tension with a simple phrase. We'll be right back. And with that, the cameras faded to commercial. So now we ask you, was Howard Stern out of line for pushing Jason to answer tough questions? Or was Jason Momoa's walk-off just another calculated chapter in a story he's told one too many times? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more explosive stories like this, where the mask slips and the truth hits harder than PR, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Echo Stories, because next time it might be someone else walking it off stage.